Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into a book that has truly changed the way I think about personal growth, and I bet it will for you too.
Ooh, okay, which one?
Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Ah, yes. It's all about those tiny changes leading to huge
That,
gain tree results, right?
absolutely. It's kind of mind-blowing how those small, everyday actions we take or don't take can really add up over time.
And the cool thing is, Clear doesn't just tell you to try harder. He gives you a practical framework based on science to actually make those changes stick.
Right. So let's jump right into the core idea of atomic habits. What's the foundation, the big aha moment that sets the stage for everything else?
I think it's the realization that habits, those tiny repeated actions, are like the atoms that build up our lives.
Well, I like that analogy. It's
Right.
like those tiny building blocks that ultimately determine the shape and structure of everything we do and who we become.
Precisely. And Clear really drives this point home with that powerful quote, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems."
Hmm, that's a good one. So it's not just about setting goals. It's about building the right systems to support those goals.
Exactly. Relying solely on motivation is like building a house on sand. It's unstable, it shifts, and it can crumble easily. What you need are strong systems, reliable processes that support those habits you want to build.
So our habits are the cogs in the system, and atomic habits gives us the tools to design that system effectively.
You got it. Now, one of the coolest things about this book is Clear's 4 laws of behavior change. They're not just random tips, they're rooted in behavioral science, which makes them even more powerful.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break them down. Starting with law number 1, what's the first step to building better habits?
Make it obvious. It sounds simple, but it's about understanding how our environment cues our behavior.
So like if you want to make reading a habit, leaving a book on your pillow is a pretty obvious cue.
Right, you're literally making it impossible to ignore. But it goes beyond just visual cues. Clear introduces a tool called the habit scorecard, where you actually track your current habits and the triggers that precede them.
So you become like a detective of your own behavior, trying to figure out what sets off those automatic responses.
Precisely. Once you identify those patterns, you can start redesigning your environment to make those good habits more prominent and the bad ones less so.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, on to law number 2, make it attractive. This one sounds a bit trickier. How do you make something like exercise or eating healthy actually appealing?
Well, this is where we tap into our brain's reward system, that natural desire for pleasure and satisfaction. We're wired to seek out things that release dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter.
So we need to find ways to make those healthy habits more rewarding so our brain actually craves them.
Precisely. One way to do this is through something called temptation bundling. You pair something you want to do with something you enjoy doing.
Oh, I've heard of that. Like only listening to your favorite podcast while exercising.
Yeah.
You're tricking your brain into associating the workout with something pleasurable.
Exactly. You're leveraging your natural inclinations to your advantage. Maybe you love taking baths but struggle to make time for meditation. Try doing a short meditation while you soak.
Oh, I love that. It's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about finding ways to make them more enjoyable.
And that enjoyment, that sense of reward, is what makes those habits stick in the long run.
Awesome. Okay, law number 3 is make it easy. This one definitely resonates with me. What's the secret to minimizing effort and maximizing results when it comes to building habits?
The key here is reducing friction, making the desired action as effortless as possible.
Like setting out your workout clothes the night before so you don't have to think about it in the morning.
Exactly. Or prepping your healthy meals for the week so you're not tempted to order takeout when you're tired.
It's about removing those obstacles, those little decision points that can derail our good intentions.
You got it. And one of my favorite strategies from the book is the 2-minute rule. Basically, you start small, ridiculously small.
So instead of trying to write a whole chapter, you just commit to writing one paragraph.
Exactly. Or instead of aiming for an hour-long workout, you just do a few minutes of stretching. The key is to make that initial hurdle so small that it's almost impossible not to clear it.
I love that. It's like tricking your brain into getting started. And once you've taken that first step, it's much easier to keep going.
You've got it. It's all about building that momentum, one small step at a time.
Okay, we're on a roll. Law number 4, make it satisfying. This one seems pretty straightforward, but I'm sure Clear has some insights on how to make those rewards more effective.
He definitely does. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, so we need to make sure that those good habits are actually rewarding.
But it's not just about those big end-of-the-journey rewards, right?
No. Clear emphasizes the importance of celebrating those small wins along the way.
So like giving yourself a pat on the back for completing a task or checking something off your to-do list.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging those little victories and making the journey itself enjoyable, not just the destination.
And tracking your progress could be really helpful too, right? Seeing those small wins add up can be incredibly motivating.
Absolutely. Whether it's a habit tracker, a journal, or even just a simple checklist, visualizing your progress can really reinforce those positive feelings and keep you going.
It's like that visual reminder that you're actually making progress, even if it's just a little bit each day.
Exactly. It's all about creating that positive feedback loop that reinforces the habit and makes you want to keep going.
This is all so fascinating. So we've covered the foundation of atomic habits and explored these 4 powerful laws for building better habits. But what about those bad habits, those unwelcome guests that just won't leave?
Ah, yes. That's where things get even more interesting. We'll tackle those pesky bad habits and learn how to evict them using the inverse of these 4 laws, but we'll save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Ooh, I'm already hooked. Can't wait to uncover those strategies. All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
Sure.
We're continuing our exploration of atomic habits, and now it's time to tackle those bad habits, those sneaky little gremlins that love to sabotage our progress.
Uh-huh. Yeah, those. It's funny because in the book, James Clear actually refers to bad habits as like these unwanted house guests.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Those guests who overstay their welcome and just won't take the hint to leave.
Right. And you're not going to be rude. You're not going to kick them out directly, but you might make things a little less comfortable for them.
I like that approach. Subtle, but effective.
Yeah.
So how do we apply atomic habits to get rid of those bad habits?
Well, Clear suggests this really clever approach. We flip those 4 laws of behavior change that we talked about in part 1, turn them on their heads.
Okay, so instead of making the habit obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, we do the opposite.
You got it. We make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break it down, starting with make it invisible. How do we make those bad habits disappear from our radar?
It's all about reducing our exposure to those triggers that set off the unwanted behavior.
So like if you're trying to cut back on social media, maybe delete those apps from your phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind, right? If those apps aren't readily available, you're less likely to mindlessly scroll.
It's like cutting off the supply line to those bad habits.
Right. And it's not just about digital distractions. If you're trying to eat healthier, make those unhealthy snacks invisible. Hide them away in a cupboard you never open, or better yet, don't even bring them into your house.
Yeah, creating those barriers to temptation. Okay, what about make it unattractive? How do we reframe those bad habits so they lose their appeal?
Well, we got to shine a light on those negative consequences. Instead of focusing on that short-term pleasure, remind yourself of the long-term costs.
So like, instead of thinking about how good that sugary treat tastes, think about how it might make you feel sluggish later.
Exactly. Or if you're tempted to stay up late binge watching, think about how it will affect your energy and productivity the next day.
It's about shifting our focus from that immediate gratification to the ultimate price we pay for those bad habits.
Yeah. And it's not about guilt-tripping yourself, it's just being honest about the trade-offs. Sometimes just reframing our perspective can be enough to make a bad habit less appealing.
Okay, now for make it difficult. How do we increase the friction and make those bad habits harder to actually do?
Well, think about adding extra steps or creating those little inconveniences that make you think twice.
So like, if you're trying to watch less TV, unplug it after each use, so you have to go through the effort of plugging it back in.
Exactly. Or if you want to reduce your online shopping, remove your saved credit card information from those websites. Make it a little less seamless and a little more effortful.
It's about introducing those little hurdles that disrupt those automatic responses.
Right. You're basically forcing yourself to be more conscious and deliberate about your choices.
I like that. Okay, and finally, we've got make it unsatisfying. This is all about making those bad habits less rewarding so we're not as tempted to repeat them.
Exactly. One way to do this is to introduce consequences, make those bad habits a little less fun.
So like, if you're trying to quit smoking, maybe tell a friend that you'll donate money to a cause you dislike every time you have a cigarette.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a good one.
Or if you're trying to reduce your screen time, Set up an app that blocks your favorite websites after a certain amount of time.
Right. It's about creating that immediate negative feedback loop that makes those bad habits less enjoyable.
It's like our own personal accountability system with built-in consequences for those slip-ups.
Exactly. We're basically leveraging those natural aversion mechanisms to
Right.
help us stay on track.
This is also fascinating. It's like we're hacking our environment and our psychology to make those bad habits less appealing and those good habits more enticing.
That's a great way to put it. We're not just relying on willpower, we're being strategic and using these clever little techniques to tilt the scales in our favor.
It's like we're becoming architects of our own habits, designing a life where those good habits flourish and those bad habits wither away.
I love that. And it's not just about manipulating our surroundings, it's also about shifting our mindset, our inner world.
Oh, right. Atomic Habits also dives into that whole idea of identity-based habits.
Exactly. It's about focusing on WHO you want to be, not just what you want to achieve.
So instead of setting a goal like lose 10 pounds, you might focus on becoming a healthy person.
You got it. It's about aligning your habits with that desired identity. If you want to be a writer, you act like a writer. You carve out time to write every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. You surround yourself with books and other writers and immerse yourself in that world.
It's like every action you take is a vote for that person you want to become.
Precisely. And as you cast more votes for that desired identity, it starts to solidify and become a part of who you are, not just something you're striving for.
This is such a powerful concept. It's like we're literally building our future selves one small habit at a time.
And it's not just about our internal world. Atomic Habits also highlights the importance of our external environment, especially our social circles.
Oh, right. I remember Clear saying that we tend to adopt the habits of those around us. If our friends are all fitness enthusiasts, we're more likely to get into shape too.
It's like our social environment exerts this gravitational pull that shapes our behavior. We're social creatures. We're wired to conform and fit in.
So if we want to change our habits, it's crucial to surround ourselves with people who support our goals and embody those qualities we want to cultivate.
Absolutely. Find your tribe, those people who are already living the way you want to live, and spend time with them. Their habits will rub off on you.
It's like choosing your influencers in real life, carefully curating a social circle that inspires and supports your growth.
Exactly. And it's not just about who we spend time with, it's also about those physical spaces we inhabit.
Oh, right. Clear talks about how we can design our environment to support our desired habits.
Yeah. If you want to read more, create a cozy little reading nook. If you want to be more productive, declutter your workspace and eliminate those distractions.
It's about making those good habits easy and inviting, and making those bad habits less accessible.
Exactly. We're consciously shaping our surroundings to make it easier to do the things that align with our goals and harder to slip back into those old patterns.
This is all starting to paint a really clear picture of how Atomic Habits isn't just about willpower or self-discipline. It's about being strategic and using all these different tools and techniques to set ourselves up for success.
And it's important to remember that change doesn't happen overnight. Clear uses that brilliant analogy of the melting ice cube to illustrate this point.
Oh yeah, I remember that. You're applying heat to the ice cube, but it seems like nothing's happening until suddenly it melts. It's all that accumulated effort that finally leads to the breakthrough.
Right. It's a reminder to trust the process and to be patient with ourselves, even when we don't see dramatic results right away.
I think that's such a crucial message, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with promises of quick fixes and instant gratification.
We've got to embrace that long-term perspective, focus on those tiny gains, and trust that those 1% improvements will compound over time.
It's like planting a seed and nurturing it patiently, knowing that it will eventually blossom into something beautiful.
Exactly. And it's not just about the destination, it's about enjoying that journey of growth and transformation.
That reminds me of those inevitable moments when we slip up, when we fall off track. What does Atomic Habits say about dealing with those setbacks? Because it's so easy to get discouraged and just give up.
Oh, absolutely. Clear talks about this really helpful concept called the reset routine. It's not about beating yourself up for making a mistake. It's about having a plan to get back on track quickly.
So it's like having a predetermined strategy for those moments when our willpower falters.
Exactly. Let's say your goal is to meditate every morning, but you accidentally sleep in and miss your session. Instead of feeling guilty and throwing in the towel, your reset routine might be to just do a 5-minute meditation later in the day.
Oh, I like that. So it's like, okay, I messed up, but I'm not going to let one slip up ruin my entire progress. I'm going to get back on track as soon as possible.
Right. It's about minimizing the damage and not letting those setbacks define you.
That takes the pressure off and makes the whole process feel a lot more sustainable.
It's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most empowering messages of Atomic Habits. It's not about becoming some superhuman version of ourselves. It's about embracing our humanness, our imperfections, and designing systems that work for us, even when we're not feeling perfect.
It's about setting ourselves up for success in the long run, not just in those fleeting moments of motivation.
Well said. So to recap our deep dive so far, we've explored those flipped 4 laws for breaking those bad habits, and we've also talked about the power of those identity-based habits, shaping our environment to support our goals, and remembering that change is a journey, not a destination.
And that it's a journey worth taking, even with those inevitable bumps along the way.
Now I'm excited to hear what final gems James Clear has in store for us. Let's wrap up our deep dives in part 3 and see what final insights we can glean from Atomic Habits to make those positive changes stick. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Atomic Habits. We've been on quite a journey, haven't we? Exploring those tiny changes that can truly transform our lives.
It really has been fascinating, hasn't it? And I think we've uncovered some really valuable insights that anyone can apply to their own lives.
Right. From understanding how habits shape our very identity, to mastering those 4 laws of behavior change, and even learning how to flip those laws to break those pesky bad habits.
Yeah. And we even talked about how our environment plays a huge role in shaping those habits, both our physical surroundings and those people we surround ourselves with.
So much good stuff. But now, let's bring it all together. As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways, some actionable steps our listeners can start implementing today?
Okay, well, I think the biggest takeaway is that change is truly within our control, you know? It's not about waiting for motivation to strike or hoping for some magical burst of willpower.
Right, it's about building systems, creating that structure that makes those good habits almost inevitable.
Exactly. Atomic Habits gives us that framework, those practical tools to actually design our environment and our behaviors in a way that supports our goals.
It's so empowering to realize that we're not just victims of our circumstances, we have agency.
We really do. And remember, it all starts with those tiny actions, those seemingly insignificant steps that over time create massive results.
Right. Don't underestimate the power of the 2-minute rule.
Yeah.
Start small, make it easy, build that momentum.
And don't get discouraged if you don't see those changes overnight.
Yeah, that's where that ice cube analogy comes in, right?
Yeah.
The change might not be visible at first, but those consistent efforts are accumulating beneath the surface.
Exactly. Trust the process, be patient with yourself, and remember, even when you slip up, don't let those setbacks derail your entire progress.
Right. Have that reset routine ready, that plan to get back on track as quickly as possible.
It's about progress, not perfection. And it's about celebrating those small wins along the way.
Yes. Make the journey enjoyable, acknowledge those little victories, and remember that it's not just about achieving some external goal, it's about who you become along the way.
That's the beauty of those identity-based habits. You're shaping your character, aligning your actions with that person you aspire to be.
And don't forget the power of your environment. Surround yourself with those people who inspire you, who lift you up, and who embody those qualities you want to cultivate.
Yes. Choose your influencers wisely, both online and offline, and create those physical spaces that support your goals.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Atomic Habits, what's that one final message, that one lasting thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I want them to remember this. You have the power to change. You have the power to design your habits, to shape your identity, and to create a life that truly aligns with your values and aspirations.
It all starts with those tiny changes, those small steps taken consistently over time.
1% better each day, and before you know it, you'll have transformed your entire life.
That's such an inspiring message. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on Atomic Habits. This has been an incredible journey, and I'm sure our listeners have gained some valuable tools and perspectives to start building those better habits today.
It's been a pleasure. Remember, small changes, remarkable results.
Until next time, keep those tiny habits in mind and keep striving for that 1% better every single day.